Part of taking care of ourselves is learning how to work with pain and difficult situations to make them less overwhelming. Although we have positive and helpful core beliefs, typically our negative core beliefs come out during stressful times, and these have a negative effect on our thoughts, emotions, body, behavior, and pain. As we have talked about, staying with these negative thoughts, emotions, sensations, even painful sensations, and holding them in awareness with acceptance is radically different from how we typically relate to these experiences. Learning to stay open and accept difficulties is typically a gradual process, and we start where we are. The basic approach is to move in this direction, and we will do so using the guided audio, Sitting with a Difficulty. The overall point of this practice is to become mindfully aware of those physical sensations that are most prominent when we bring this difficulty to mind, and to intentionally shift our spotlight of attention to the part of the body where those sensations are strongest, and breathe with those sensations. In working with difficulties during this exercise, we will be training our minds to see thinking simply as thinking, to see thoughts as releases of the mind without necessarily a basis in reality or any great degree of truth. And even if a thought does seem to be true, as thoughts will often claim themselves to be, in this moment, is it bearable? When I tune into my body in this moment, is it okay to let this experience just be as it is, acknowledging whatever is present with gentle curiosity, patience, and kindness? When you listen to the Sitting with a Difficulty audio, we will guide you in how to take 2 steps to actively work with difficulties in your meditation practice, responding with acceptance. The following are the 2 fundamental steps. 1. As always, the first step is awareness. During the guided audio Sitting with a Difficulty, you will be guided to, as best you can, welcome or invite a difficulty or problem to mind that you might experience. Perhaps during meditation, you have often found your mind wandering to boredom, discomfort, or a relationship of some kind. Or perhaps you have found your mind repeatedly drawn to a particular difficulty, whether it be to a thought, emotion, or physical sensation. It is best to start with a moderate problem rather than the biggest concern on your mind. This will give you practice in learning the technique so that later you can apply it to more intense problems. If you are struggling to pinpoint a difficulty, as a tool to hone your awareness, return back to our discussion of core beliefs as depicted by a tree, which outlines some typical negative beliefs people hold about themselves during times of stress. Reviewing this image may help with becoming aware of beliefs that may be present, or just underneath the surface, for you that may underlie distress or a sense of unease. You can also experiment with learning the technique by working with some difficulty you may have experienced during the workshop, perhaps a stressful experience you noted in your home practice log, and intentionally bringing that to mind. 2. The second step is to shift your primary focus, so that while the difficulty or whatever your mind is repeatedly drawn to is held in the background, you bring to the foreground of your awareness, where in the body you are noticing the felt sensation of this difficulty. Just as with the body scan, deliberately moving your spotlight of attention to that place, and then breathing with the sensations, opening and softening to them. Keep the following tips in the mind, the following while listening to this guided audio. Approach difficulties by bringing to them a light touch, not bulldozing through. Sometimes, thoughts, beliefs, or situations may seem so negative or difficult that to bring awareness to them might seem too unbearable. If this is your experience, rather than fighting with it, we have a number of ways we might respond available to us. One option, as we have been learning, is to bring to awareness to how we are relating to the difficulty within the body, whether it be with physical sensations or perhaps emotions. If when you bring to mind the difficulty or the negative thought or belief, you notice a strong sensation in the body arising, we can move our attention to that place, softening, opening, and breathing with the sensations, giving them space and allowing them to be present. And when the sensation is no longer has a strong pull on your attention, just resting your awareness with the movements of the breath or to the body as a whole. Another option for working with difficulties in meditation is that if, rather than a strong physical sensation, you notice a strong emotion bubbling to the surface, we might sit with the emotional charge of that energy, rather than the thought itself. Breathing with the emotion, giving it space, opening, just as we are learning to do with physical sensations that arise. In staying with the emotional charge of energy, as opposed to getting lost in thinking, we learn to stay present with experience, without adding further fuel to the fire. Physical discomfort is actually a useful way to practice this skill because it can easily be brought into awareness as it is a strong sensation. Obviously, this is not a typical response to pain. The natural tendency is to tense, brace, or push away pain or physical discomfort. However, simply being aware of our tendency to push these feelings away and bring an open, friendly curiosity to that tendency provides a very useful practice. Working with these difficulties in this way, though, may open up more ways of responding. Staying with difficulties and bringing a gentle curiosity to them is itself part of acceptance. If at any time you find it is too overwhelming during this practice to bring to mind a problem, simply return awareness to the breath, and then perhaps gently going back and forth between your breath and working with the meditation technique, maintaining a kind, non-judgmental approach to working with the difficulty. The idea is not to force yourself to have prolonged exposure. Rather, it is to practice being in touch with difficulties with gentleness, in short moments, again and again. In touch with the difficulty for a short while, pausing and breathing, and then touching in again. During this practice, you may want to repeat a verse on acceptance that feels right to you. For example, you may want to say to yourself, "Whatever arises is okay. Let me stay open and feel it, and breathe with it." Learning to work with, make space for, and move toward accepting pain and difficulty in any form takes gentle practice. At first, you may find you can only stay with the difficulty for a few breaths. This is okay. If this is your experience, practice gently touching in with the difficulty, gently making contact with the difficulty, touching in, pausing with it and breathing with the sensations, then stepping back and staying with awareness of the breath for a moment or so as we anchor ourselves, and then gently touching back in again. With each time you practice, you may find yourself better able to stay with the difficult sensations. The point is to stay with this process, breathe with the sensations, and stay open and present with the sensations for as long as they have a pull on your attention. When you finish this guided audio, you may want to ask yourself, what did I notice with this practice? How was this practice different from how I typically relate to challenging circumstances? And how might this practice relate to living with pain?